Welcome to Martini Time. I've had a very interesting Sunday today. I was out at Mount Nebo, which is a historic black church here in Blackstone, taking pictures for their 150th reunion, and had time to hear the sermon. Then I took group pictures and candids of the people there, like you do at a wedding, and I really, I've been invited there to take pictures over the years, and and I just wanted to talk about the feeling I got from the church and its service, and the sense of timelessness. There's the older church across the street, and that's been this is a more recent church, and but there was a sense of timelessness there that I haven't felt in white churches, the ones I've been to here in town, like the Presbyterian Church. There's just a different sense of presence and particularly in the sermon. Now, like right now, I'm giving a sermon. I'm a Martini priest, and this is the Eucharist, and but I'm riffing it. And I remember listening to Chris Rock once, and he got his inspiration from his grandfather, who was a preacher, and he said the grandfather didn't write out the sermon; he just wrote down a few key ideas, and then he got up and riffed it. So the speak is very spontaneous, and it becomes very present. And so I listened to this pastor, it's Reverend Batts, and he gave this sermon, and I was sitting out in the front foyer, so I could just hear it. And he wasn't reading a teleprompter, he wasn't reading notes. It was all coming from the heart, and there was it was like music. It was if you didn't understand English, and a lot of times, you can't really understand what's being said. But Marshall McLuhan, my favorite philosopher, one of them, said the medium is the message. So the medium of the sermon is the rhythm and the presentation, and the riffing of the sermon is the spirit of the sermon, the word of the sermon, not the content so much. So this is totally different, you see, because usually in the mainstream Protestant churches, the white churches, and I wanted to become a minister, so and I guess that's why I'm not a minister, because they, thank God. In other words, there you plan the sermon out. You want it to make your points. You want to have you want it to be rational. You want it to be logical. You want it to be you want to get a point across, a teaching across. You see, so the message is the content. But for this type of preaching, the message is in the delivery. The message is in the delivery. So just like I remember when I was sitting in seminary before I got kicked out, and Oh Happy Day by the Edwin Hawkins Singers had just come out. And I remember here I was sitting in the cafeteria, dining hall, and they were playing that Oh Happy Day, when Jesus walks, when I felt like Jesus was walking right through me. I felt like I was walking with Jesus. But you're walking with the music. You're not walking with some ghost. You're walking in the present moment. You're walking in this timeless place, in the timeless place of the music. See, music is timeless. Why is it timeless? Because you only hear the present moment. You don't hear the past and the future of music. You just hear the moment, you see. And the moment is timeless. You don't hear the past and the future. You just hear the present, what's now, you see. And so with the I'm not an expert here, but I'm just saying what my feeling was from today. So when I heard Reverend Batt's sermon, his preaching, I wasn't feeling the content. Oh, that's a very rational thing. Oh, yes. What theology was that? That really is a great theological point. You see, no, it wasn't that at all. It was living. It was a living sermon, and living means now or timeless. Life is not in time. You can't look. Life is not in the past or the future. Life is now. So the church service is now, is that feeling of the timelessness. And this is through the music and the interaction of the preacher and the congregation and the choir and the piano player, you see. All of this creates this living presence. So when you're calling upon saying, when Jesus walks, it's in the church, in the coming together, you see, in this timeless place that Jesus walks. Because Christ, Jesus, is timeless. So how do you get Jesus to walk with you? You give up time. You become timeless. So I had the feeling that the church service was a timeless place where people come, they're in time. During the week, you're in time. I mean, everything's divided up into time. It's got this, during the week, we live by this. You see, time. Everything. You got time to go to work, and when you go to work, you got time to go get a coffee break. You got your time for lunch, and you get really irritated if they call you to come back for work during lunch. That's my time. And then you got time to go home. Oh, I got traffic and commuting time. Oh, that's bad time. And then I got dinner time. And then I got maybe TV time, and the boss calls when you got TV time, you get pissed off because he's interfering with your time. And then maybe if you meditate, you have meditation time, and the phone rings and you get irritated because interfering with your time. So we live in this compartmentalization of time. This is time for everything like that. It's all run by the clock, you see. But in a timeless place, there is no clock. There is no past and future. It's all coming out of the present moment. So when the preacher's riffing, when the preacher is speaking from the heart, you see, he's not speaking from a sermon that he wrote out in time. Well, this sermon will take 30 minutes. You see, I got so many words here. This is a good sermon. I got 2,000 words, and it will take about 30 minutes to deliver, and that's good. You see, I don't want to go over. So it's all compartmentalized, and you got time for this everything. The service runs on time. It starts at this and ends at that, and it doesn't go over. People get pissed, and so it's all in time. You see. But the timeless church is like a black hole. You just draw a sinkhole. You just drop in to this space that is timeless. And the music and the presence, you see, it's kind of like out of space-time. So the world that we live in is space-time. It's all blocked up into space and time. You go to work, you go here, you go there, it's for time, you watch the clock, yada, yada. It's all fragmented. It's killing us, you see. It's stressful because our times, my time, your time, get out of my time. I'm in your time, get out of I need more time. I don't have enough time. I got too much time. It's time, you see. And so we go to a place that's timeless. And if it runs past the time, nobody cares. It just has its own time. It creates its own time, you see. So there's the feeling that if it runs over a couple hours, everybody's there. Nobody's complaining. Say, what do you mean? It should have stopped at 2 o'clock and now it's 2:30. I'm getting out of here. You see, it just creates its own time, you see. It's an eternal, timeless place, you see. And I had that was the feeling I got. And if that isn't Jesus, I don't know what is. Seriously. If Christ is timeless, well then you have to create the timeless place in order to walk with Jesus. You can't walk with Jesus if you're following a clock. Oh, well, this is this is so-and-so, this is my time, this is Jesus' time. Well, that's still, you go to church and And you feel like that too gets compartmentalized. Well, you got to get to church at 11. That's church time. Ends at 12. That's the end of that. Then we can go go out to lunch. That's lunch time. Then I go home and watch some football. That's football time. Then I got some dinner time. And then maybe some more TV time, you see. And then I go to bedtime. Then I get up and got to go to work time, you see. And it's all run by the clock. So Jesus is not walking by the clock. No, Christ isn't walking by the clock, you see. You can't find him there. You can't find him on a watch, you see. So so I really got a different feeling for what church is, you know. So this church, you know, everywhere's Catholic, Protestant, black, white, whatever. Basically, these are timeless places. Timeless places. And what happens when you are in the time? What should happen when you're in a timeless place is that you get energized, you get rebooted, you get pulled together. And I had the feeling with this church that the people there were all in the music, in the walking with Jesus, in the singing, and the preaching, and the whole thing. Everybody was one organism, one church, one body. One body, you see. Everybody was one body. Nobody was fragmented. You know, they had communion. So what do they do when you have communion? Well, you break the bread. It's fragmented. And then you eat it. And then you drink the wine, you see. And speaking of time, I just watch. I want to keep a check on time here. Okay. We're good. So, okay, and now I lost my thread of thought. Let me take a drink of martini here. So, the feeling I got today was that what a church should do, it should provide this timeless place of one body. So when Christ says, "This is my body, this is my blood," and everybody eats it, that is a ritual. It's not a lot of churches say it's a remembering Jesus. Well, that's fine. Remember Jesus, that's fine. But it should be an activation of Christ here. So how do you activate Christ? It's kind of like when you get a credit card. It doesn't have any power. You have to call it in. You got the power, but it doesn't do anything. You see, you can't use the darn card. So you got to call it in and activate it. Then you got the power. So how do you activate the power of Christ? See, that's the thing. It's like Christ gives you a credit. You got a credit card if you're a Christian. But how do you activate the power of that credit card? Well, you got to give up time. Because Christ is timeless. So if you want the power of Christ, you got to go into the timeless place. And we don't want to go there because our world is all mapped out in time. We're all running by the clock. Harold Lloyd hanging by the clock. That's one of my favorite pictures. When my mother took her to see Avatar, she was 100 years old, and she said, the first movie I remember was Harold Lloyd hanging from a clock. And then, another thing she said, not then, but another time, she said, you know why I'm happy? And I said, why, Mom? She said, because I have no future. I have no time. When you're 100, you don't have that much time. But I say, why wait until you're 100 to run out of time? You can run out of time anywhere if you know how to give up being attached to time. There's nothing wrong with time. I mean, we got to catch a bus. We got to go to work. We got to go to lunch. You got to have your time and all that. But if we don't have a timeless ground, we're fragmented. We're broken. We're a cup smashed on the floor, you see, if we don't have that ground of timelessness. So I really feel like the church that I was in today was a ground of timelessness. It held timelessness in a cup. It held timelessness in a place, in a church. And you could go there and eat and drink from this timeless space and be re-energized and touch the timeless in yourself. touch the unity in yourself. Touch the Christ in yourself, you see. And then you go back into the world and you're okay. You got energy. You got faith. Because you got that ground. You got that reference point to timelessness. If we lose, it's kind of like a compass, you know. You stick a drawing compass, you know, you stick it on, and you stick this thing in here, and then you can run this around. If it's however long, you draw circles and all kinds of stuff. But where do you put that, you see? If you put it in time and space, then you have no ground in the timeless. So now you are fragmented in time, compartmentalized. I got this time for this, time for that, I need more time, and yada, yada, yada. We're suffering. Time is pain. Time is suffering unless you have the other foot of the compass in timelessness. If you can put that one foot, the solid foot, the foot that can't be moved, in timelessness, then wherever the other foot goes to work, goes here, goes there, wherever it goes, whatever happens out there in the flat world, you see, is okay, because your foot is in the timeless center, in the formless center of Christ, you see. So that was the meaning I got out of the church. The leg of the soul, you see, your soul has to be anchored in the timeless, and then your mind can go on the flat world and draw anything you want to draw. Circles, whatever you want to go, as far as you want to go. But if you don't have the other foot anchored in the timeless, anchored in the formless, you see, then you are not going, then you're lost. There's no reference point. See, all form dies. All form, physical form and mental form, thoughts, feelings, concepts, beliefs, religions, everything is mental. It's in time. Thinking is time. Everything we can think of is in time, you see. So if your compass is anchored in thinking, in belief, in concepts, you see, you are anchored in time. And time dies. Time is thinking is an abstraction, you see. And time is where we fear. Without time, there'd be no fear. No fear of death. Timeless has no death. So unless we find that timeless center in the heart, you see. And I really felt we had that. I felt that, checking my time. So I really got this feeling of this church as a timeless place where the people come to find their timeless center as one, you see. So it's a body. The church becomes a body that moves as one. It's like a basketball team that's in sync, you see. It's a tribe. It's a body that moves as one. And it moves to the rhythms. It rises and falls and moves to the rhythms of the sermon, you see. And the choir and the music. And the community and the companionship. And the laughter. There's a lot of laughter. And you can sure as tell when you're timeless. You can tell when you're timeless if there's laughter. Laughter does not happen in time, you see. Laughter happens in the timeless. Just think of it. When you laugh, are you thinking about laughing? When you laugh, are you looking at your watch? How long am I going to laugh? Or this laugh should be longer. Or I should have laughed earlier. Or am I laughing okay? Or is this laugh all right? Is this, when we laugh, if you really laugh, you're not self-conscious of it. You laugh. That's the timeless. So if you're in a religion that doesn't laugh, you haven't got the timeless. So that's the clue right there. If you're looking for the timeless, follow the scent of laughter. Joy, laughter, you see. Comedy. And that's why, getting back to the sermon again. When I talk here, I guess this is why I'm not a Presbyterian minister, because I did not prepare this. And So this is, for me, this is a timeless place. This little Facebook top is timeless because it's coming out of now. It's creating itself out of, like a fountain, it's creating itself out of now. And what I've learned in doing this is that I trust now. I trust that what I say will not be offensive. You see. So anyway, but Mr. Rather, one of the church deacons or members of the church, came over and gave me a check for my time there today, and I told him I was going to be talking about Mount Nebo Church. And this reminds me. Now I got a few more minutes here. When I first started working at the Courier-Record in 1987, it was when there was a big civil lawsuit in town here by the ACLU and James Neal, who was the local person who signed on to the suit. A local person has to sign on to change the voting status from at large to zones. Previously to 1987 here in Blackstone, the voting for town council and mayor was by at large, so everybody was always white. So when they changed it to districts or zones, you were able to get a few black representations, you know. And so John Neal was the was on the suit, and I was a new feature writer for the Courier-Record, and I said, wow, you know, I'd like to write a feature story on John Neal. And my the editor, Doug Colburn, said, well, what's the news in that? You know, what do you want to write? You know, what do you want to do that for? There's no news there. And then he said, his heart spoke up, well, go ahead. So I did. And then I wrote the story, and he put it in the paper. And the next thing I know, he was up front telling one of his buddies at the front, he said, did you see the story about John Neal we wrote? So right then I knew I could work for the Courier-Record because I could write from my heart, you see. I was okay. And so when all my writings from my feature writings with the Courier-Record, which are on Blackstone Chronicles on Facebook, were from my heart. And so now I'm writing or talking on Facebook Live from the heart, you see. And when you speak from the heart, you're speaking from a timeless place. Because when you speak from a timeless place, you're not afraid of what people think because you trust the heart. When you speak from the timeless place, you trust that. That's faith. Faith in the timeless. But belief is in time. Belief is in something. And something is in time, you see. So belief is all about time. In some form, some idea, some concept, you see. And it will die. Forms change. Forms are not permanent. But the timeless heart is. So that's where Christ lives, you see. In the timeless heart, in the timeless place. And that's what I found today in the Mount Nebo Church in Blackstone, Virginia. So thank you for dropping in.